The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello there and welcome to the show. This is The West Stand. It's our new show for this season. It's out on a Monday and a Friday. You can find it in YouTube and in your podcast app as well. Guests from across the world of Leeds United. I'm Dan Moylan. With me is Michael Normanton.
You all right?
Black Friday.
Is that today?
It is today.
Of course I know it's today. I'll be having a browse.
You've been up all night, haven't you?
That's just the adrenaline of a win.
Yes. Black Friday deal from NordVPN. An exclusive deal we've got from NordVPN. What can you use NordVPN for? Looking ahead to the Blackburn game, for example.
For example. Or any game that may be available to stream on certain services, not available in the UK, but available to people in Europe, rest of the world. For example, if you wanted to hop on a little virtual plane to watch a game, that would be an option.
You could even make noises.
Could do.
As you opened up the connection on NordVPN. A virtual location, I think, were the words you were searching for there.
That's the one.
Yeah, and you can do it as well for so if you want to get subscriptions, try those out from abroad, then you can shop around and access content on streaming services. They've got a different lineup.
Or if you're actually abroad in a cafe or something, you can connect and it makes it secure.
Wow. NordVPN.com/TSB. So there's lots of good security reasons to do it. Protect all your private data if you are on public networks and so on and so forth. Yeah, virtual servers around the world, the fastest VPN in the world, and it can be yours on a Black Friday deal.
What is that deal, Daniel?
Should I tell you?
Yes, please.
That would be really, really useful. Yeah, you get an additional 4 months on top of your discounted 2-year plan, risk-free as well, because Nord offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN.com/TSB, and you can find the link in the episode description box. And time to introduce our guest. It's Beren Cross from Leeds Live. Hi, Beren. You all right?
Good morning. You all right?
All right. Yes, it is the morning. We're back in on Thursday. It feels like only about 5 minutes since we left Elland Road last night. We're all feeling pretty fresh this morning, getting the caffeine downers. But it's a good time, I suppose, to react immediately to what Daniel Farke was saying in the press conference afterwards. You were in the room. We weren't. What was his general demeanour? Very, very happy, I presume.
Yeah, very, very happy. I think the performances are now finally matching the statistics that we've seen all season. We know that Leeds statistically are the best team in this league, and the results are now following that. And clearly, Farke is never going to say nothing can be improved upon. I think Popey actually asked him, you're pretty much unmatched in every single field, so what can you improve on? And I think Farke addressed a couple of moments where Luton, they did get through a couple of times in the first half. Thankfully, Leeds dealt with it. And then towards the latter stages, as Leeds were clear at 3-0, they did get through a couple more times, and Melee had to make a save or two. So they were the things he felt they had to improve on. But yeah, generally very, very happy with how things are going, and very, very convincing.
Does it feel to you that this team is reaching a point almost of maturity this season, like it's properly found itself?
Absolutely. I think Sunday was a real combination of those factors coming together. I think when you've been in the trenches, as it were, together like that and got over the line, and we know now there's no more international breaks until March. I think psychologically it's quite easy for the players to now fully commit, get their heads down and say, right, this, as Farke says, this is when the league is made. And they've got a lot of games now to get through. They come thick and fast. And I think it's perfect timing because the way the players are now gelling, and Wednesday, the confidence just with every single player, everybody wanted the ball. I mean, I think I saw Solomon coming as deep as the defensive line to pick the ball because he wants to get on the ball. He wants to affect the game. And I asked Farke about that last night, and he said that when they make football look as easy as it did on Wednesday, that doesn't happen by accident. It's a lot of hard work. And we are now several months into the season. A lot of these players were new in the summer. And as you say, they are reaching this maturity where it feels like their movements are second nature. A little bit with Bielsa's Leeds, a lot of that, they kind of all knew where to be, didn't they? Scott Parker would say scripted patterns of movement, but I felt last night it just gelled so nicely, and they ran right. I know Luton were poor, but Leeds were very good.
It was really interesting spectacle, I thought, in the second half to watch us knocking it round at the back at 2-0 up and Luton still not going after the ball, or just couldn't get it. Because Rob Edwards was very complimentary about Leeds afterwards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think he came into the game saying that this is the toughest task in the league at the moment, and then followed up again saying that so it proved. And yeah, I think I made this point last night in some of the coverage, was that if at 1 or 2-0 down, you can see what you're doing is not working. What is the problem with just opening yourselves up and in order to try and win the game, or maybe even blag a 2-2 draw or something? Because if you then go and lose 6-2, 6-1, who cares really? I mean, you're going to get beaten anyway, so why not change it? But yeah, I think Farke was really impressed with that as well. The fact that they were a deep line block, which Leeds have struggled with at times, but Leeds just they knew the way to get around it on Wednesday.
First goal by Sam Byram, who is proving to be a really, really shrewd acquisition at this level. I've got a confession as well to make about that. I didn't mention this on the match ball last night. It escaped me, but I was directly in line with that. So the ball travelled like 90 degrees away from my position. But he took the first shot that went up in the air. That one looked to me like it was going in the far corner. So I started celebrating. I went, yeah, and realised nobody around me was. I went, oh, shit. But then thankfully he followed it up with the second one. I was like, oh, God, that's masked my incompetence. Because sometimes the ball will go straight up, but you can't quite tell whether it's coming towards you, going away from you.
My pessimism dictates that every time there's an opposition corner at the far end, even when we head it clear, I see it heading straight towards our goal. It's just got something about it. I can't quite grasp the perspective, even after years of
many decades of bitter experience.
I've just gone, I've scored. Oh, no, we've cleared it. All right,
yeah,
well,
but he's been great, hasn't he, Byram?
Yeah, I've really liked him ever since he came back. I felt he's been a constant, reliable performer. I think clearly injuries have always been his issue, but if he can stay fit, when he has stayed fit, I think he's been tremendous. I think Firpo's clearly upped his level coming through last season and is the undisputed number one there. But I think when Byron plays, he's got no qualms at all about that. And I think last night was probably the best of the three that he's had since Firpo's been most recently suspended. And I think if he hadn't had this discomfort in the hamstring that Farke mentioned, I think there'd be an argument for him staying in on Saturday. Farke's very faithful to players that are doing well for him and a winning team. And I think whilst he wasn't happy with the process that led to Firpo's suspension, I think he was aware that it was Firpo's poor judgment. And I wonder if he might have just left him on the naughty step on Saturday and just given him 20 minutes so just to get himself back in before then maybe
naughty step
coming back in for Derby. But I think, given Byram's injury history, I do wonder if that will just leave the door ajar for Firpo to come back in.
Speaking of the naughty step, I thought Verba was okay last night. I'm not going to go too heavy on the praise, but from the bits we've seen of him since his return, I thought last night was the best of it.
Yeah. Joel Piroux got the second goal. He's found himself a really interesting little niche in that sometimes he could be completely anonymous and not feature in a game, but just put it in like all good centre forwards do. And you have to say, on balance, he deserves to keep his place in the team.
I think so. Yeah, he's managed, like you say, he's mastered this art of kind of not doing a great deal, but then turning up for very, very important goals. And I suppose that's what he would say is on the pitch to do. Sniffs opportunities out, buries them. And I think Joseph isn't really catching the eye much at the moment. He's getting 15, 20 minutes here and there. Dan James comes on last night. Again, completely catches the eye, does brilliantly, changes the game in some way. And Matteo just doesn't, he's just not quite catching the eye in that way. And of course, Bamford's not getting a look in at all. So I think Pirro will stay in as long as he keeps scoring. But whilst everybody else is doing good stuff, I suppose we can overlook maybe how anonymous he is. But maybe that's just the role of a striker in this shape, in this system.
Yeah, just going back to Verba, actually, I think that is part of the Leeds feeling like they're moving towards a position of maturity, I suppose, in that Verba is back fit and featuring again. Ramazani comes off the bench. It feels like we're seeing the squad starting to come together now. And I think, as we might be saying on the match ball, when you put the two midfielders back into this, I mean, bloody hell, what an embarrassment of riches that is.
I think with Verba as well, there's been a slight stink around him being part of the squad because of everything that happened. His return, the fact he played against Middlesbrough wasn't good. I feel like last night was actually a nice little cleanser to get out of the way because there was a bit of booing, I suppose, when he came on, but not very much. It was kind of, and he just has to, as we were discussing last night, he just has to suck it up and just crack on with it and everyone will move on.
Yeah, score a goal or something like that from a corner. Then.
And next time he comes on, there'll probably be even less. And then the time after that, everyone will have forgotten about it. People will be like, yes, we've said our bit. Just go and play. It's fine.
Verba was pretty bright, I thought. Yeah, he got up and down the flank pretty well. And like you say, he's just got to suck it up for a little bit. And quite surprising to see him stood over the free kick outside the box. I think Farke had made a joke about what he'd said to Verba when he came on at Swansea. I think they were having a little laugh on the touchline and he said, I want you to go on and score a free kick for us. And I thought he was just joshing around with us. But he was over the free kick last night. I think he had a legitimate chance of taking it. Apparently he's been pretty good at them back in Germany. So I was
shouting for Rothwell at that point. I thought Rothwell was going to maybe go outside the wall.
It was Pirro, wasn't it, in the end?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I think in the end it was. But I think Verba will be needed as well. I think if you can get minutes into these players, you need to, because we know that suspensions and injuries will come over the winter. And he clearly is that first one into that back four, certainly a centre-back.
And as Chris Mack was saying, who was sat in that chair last night on the match ball, we've still got, there's 29 games left this season. It's a lot of football to play. There'll be a bit of FA Cup in there as well, probably a game. 2 at a push. You know how it is. But it's a lot of football to manage through. When you consider that the Premier League season is 38 games, we've still got the absolute lion's share of that left to go numbers wise. So the squad will feature, and it was lovely seeing Ramazani come back in, I think, and just add that little bit of chef's kiss, kind of that little bit of magic.
The squad's in such a good place, isn't it? I mean, like you say, you've not even got Garev and Ampadu in there at the moment, and if they come back, you've already got Tanaka and Rothwell, who have been 2 of the revelations this season. It is an amazing squad. When you're leaving the likes of Bamford on the bench, who aren't even getting on, it's pretty staggering. But yeah, when you've got all 4 of the wingers as they are, you've got Solomon, James, and Nonto, none of which are justifying being left out of the team at the moment. And then you've got Ramazani coming back, who arguably has been one of the best of the 4 this season when he's been fit. So yeah, it's pretty special. I think people have got to enjoy it whilst we can, because injuries are never far away, are they? No, and you mentioned Tanaka in passing there. Obviously, I'm never going to tire of talking him up. Black Friday and all that. Let's talk about bargain purchases and so on. Shoehorn a Black Friday reference into that. But I mean, for like £3 million, unbelievable signing, and the evidence mounts game by game. Every single game. I mean, do you guys find on the match ball you're just getting almost tired talking about him? He's almost so good.
Not me.
He's almost so good. It almost goes without saying, doesn't it? His level is at such a high level. Barely puts a foot wrong. Good in defence. Good in attack. Seemed quite keen for a goal on Wednesday, didn't he? He's had a few pot shots. Farke spoke about him post-match. He was asked, how has he settled in off the field? Because we don't know a lot about him, do we? He goes under the radar a bit. Clearly doesn't do a lot of interviews. I think his English is passable, but clearly not enough for any sort of big broadcast interviews yet. But he says that, he's great. And I think that the biggest mark of a footballer is their teammates around them. And apparently they have a great time with him off the pitch. And when he's speaking to Farke, says that when he speaks to him, it's all very much yes, no. His English isn't great. And he's very sort of calm and level-headed. But when Farke is overhearing them talk with Tanaka, it's all laughing and joking. And this Tiger Tanaka nickname is really sticking. And it seems like he's making a massive impression off the pitch as well.
It'd be fun to hear his Japanese English accent. Oh, it'd be Yorkshire, won't it? Like, because you hear it like in Strauk. Strauk is obviously quite an exotic man because of his heritage. And then occasionally you'll hear him speak and he just breaks into a little bit of Yorkshire.
Like Sol Bamba's Scottish. That was always nice to hear a bit of. Yeah, with Tanaka, it's weird. Like last night, we were discussing man of the match, and I said, I can't give it to Tanaka again.
It's like you can't.
I was like, just Rothwell, just to vary it. I'm getting bored of saying he's our best player, but I mean, he is now from a position of not being in our starting 11. He's probably the one now, isn't he? That if he got injured, you'd be like, oh no.
Like I said on the match ball,
this is where the season goes wrong.
When he went down with holding his head or his face, I thought, oh no, started catastrophizing.
How are you going to fit Gruev and Ampadu back into the team? Do you think it's Ampadu and Tanaka now until? I mean, Gruev, it sounds like could be out until the spring. So I mean, I suppose that is going to give Ampadu and Tanaka time to really build a good relationship. But it'd be interesting to see what Tanaka's like going forward more, because clearly Ampadu will be the sitter. But that feels like the strongest partnership, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, or it may just sort itself out because you get an injury at centre back. If Ampadu's fit, he probably fills in there, doesn't he? And there'll be opportunities for it to be reshuffled, you would think. But I really liked what Rothwell's doing. I think he gives us a lot of drive from midfield in a way that last year when it was Kamara, sometimes you just got a bit frustrated with him, didn't you, for not just running into the space in front of him. He'd always, even when there was room around him, he'd sometimes just turn and play it square, and you'd be like, well, there's an opportunity to just advance it 10 yards there, but it feels like Rothwell always does it.
Yeah, it was, I think it was Ali out of the two, not the top 20 boys. If it was George, then forgive me. But when they came on and spoke about Rothwell and said he's really unique in terms of the fact that he gets the ball and just advances with it. And you don't get many midfielders in the Championship that do that. So you can really see the thought process that went into recruiting him and what he offers. Because he's very, very progressive in terms of carrying the ball 10 yards up the pitch and just running at people, which must be quite alarming as a defender. I imagine I wouldn't like it.
No, just fall over backwards. With Tanaka, it feels a bit like he makes a mockery of scouting because he's in his mid-20s. He's played 20, 30 games for Japan. He's played in the World Cup. He's been admittedly in the second tier, but he's been playing in a major league. And he was very, very cheap by modern standards, and no one bought him.
He just looks like the ideal kind of player that these aspirational Premier League sides pick up. You know, you've got Brighton and Brentford, who have got this great reputation for picking players up from the continent, especially from the second tier in Germany. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, Leeds, of course, wanted him last summer as well. They didn't get him. And you thought, well, if Leeds knew about him last summer and didn't get him, why didn't anybody else get him last summer? Because he's been left on the shelf until, again, last day or two of the window this time around. So clearly, there's some massive gaps in people scouting because, he's or best signing in a little while, maybe since Raphinha.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
God, that's quite a claim, but yeah.
But in terms of impact, it has to be, doesn't it? Well, obviously, it'll be a different challenge if and when we get up, but let's get up first. Again, we can only reinforce that and keep saying it over and over again.
But of the players we've got...
But you feel like he would make the transition, don't you?
I feel like he'd be one of the better ones.
Yeah.
He could drop into most... Certainly, admittedly, we'll be presumably coming into a more difficult situation because we won't be dominant in games and stuff. But I feel like if you dropped him into Liverpool's team tomorrow, he'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
He wouldn't probably start for them, but, he'd keep it ticking over from in midfield for a game or two.
Yeah, I said on one of the previous shows with reference to Liverpool, like Liverpool wouldn't go and buy Tanaka from second tier in Germany, but they would buy him from, let's say, Brighton, if he was at Brighton.
From us.
Or us, for example, if we get... Let's hope that doesn't come to pass. But the point I'm making is that the elite clubs, will only shop in a particular bracket.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, there's a ceiling, but there's also a floor at which they're willing to shop. And perhaps that's part of it. It's almost, I suppose, like a scouting snobbery, I suppose.
Let him come in and prove himself elsewhere, and if he is good enough, then we'll come in and we'll pay just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Won't be able to turn us down.
Yeah, for example, like Sobolazai.
Yeah.
Has made his way up and ended up there after being at Red Bull, hasn't he? So, yeah, you can see how these things work. I think our players climb
It's a distrust of cheap things, whereas I, as you know, love a cheap thing. So I'd buy hundreds of Tanakas, just speculative. Actually, that's what Leeds Lives did. Don't do that again.
But yeah, we've got some fixtures coming up that the list looks all right, I would say. I think there's reason to be quietly optimistic. And I think that's in terms of how the club and the team feels like it's moving to a position of maturity. This season feels a bit more business-like to me. Like there's less, it's a less emotional season and a more of a, we need to get this done kind of thing. Everyone seems really focused.
I think not having a Leicester and Ipswich distracting from things makes it easier, because I think Leeds know they are the big boys in this league and they are the best team, and they can have that confidence and that air of authority about them. Whereas last season we were all sort of flapping, weren't we? Oh God, look how far ahead Leicester and Ipswich are. Why aren't we winning every single game? But I think there is that calmness to things. I think we all know that they are the best team. It's just a case of ensuring that they have less hiccups than they do. And yeah, the fixtures look pretty good, don't they? I mean, they've pretty much played now all the nearest rivals, and none of them have massively impressed us. The Borough game, I think, was always one that I looked at, but I mean, they are just so inconsistent. Their stats are really impressive, and I think they could be in one of the best teams in the league. But yeah, they drop a result like last night. I think they were missing a couple of players, but I mean, you can't be losing at home to Blackburn. I think they're already sort of just clinging on to the top six, Borough. So maybe that shouldn't be as intimidating as it could be.
Yeah, prior to that, we played Derby. We should mention our drinks again because we want people to turn up.
True, yeah. I don't want to be having a sad pint by myself.
No, Saturday the 7th of December, Leeds against Derby, lunchtime kickoff. We're going to come down here, do the match ball afterwards. And I think, is that when you're coming back in for that one after that?
I think so, yeah.
Potentially, yeah.
You're going to try and drag me along?
If you want to come, if you have to, and then we're going down to the Griffin in Leeds on Ball Lane near the station for Christmas drinks. So if you fancy coming down, I think Beren's going to buy you a pint as well as Michael.
You better see Beren easier as well.
Yeah.
Good meeting point.
Scurry around in the crowd. I was going to say, you can't tell from the chairs in here. Beren, you're a big lad. Michael, perhaps a little bit on the.
I'm bigger than Willie Nonto.
Yeah,
and Manor Solomon, I would say as well.
Would you describe yourself as sub-average?
I mean, let's be honest, yes.
But in what categories? Anyway, but yeah, down at the Griffin after the Derby game, we'll be there for I think tea time-ish, won't we?
Yeah, ish.
Some afternoon drinks, yeah. So we'd love to see you down there. But yeah, that's looking like that's winnable, isn't it? Blackburn will be more of a difficult proposition at the weekend. I didn't realise they'd climbed the table quite as high as they have done. They're 8th, I think, at the minute.
You did just say, Beren, you can't be losing to Blackburn. So it's a risky.
At home.
At home, fine.
At home. It'll be tricky. I mean, obviously, as we know, it'll be the best away end of the season with 7,500 there. So I think we spoke to Dan James last night, and he said that the away fans there are always really impressive and always catch your eye. And yeah, it'll be tricky. I mean, they've done far better than I thought. I think I've said on here before. I think I backed Blackburn to go down at the start of the season, but clearly are surpassing expectations. But again, I've seen so much in this league, and Leeds are just a cut above what we've seen. I know you have games like Millwall away where it just doesn't quite happen. But I think with the way they're playing at the moment and the confidence they've got and the options they've got, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's Solomon's turn to go on the bench, given the way the last two games have gone, and we see James and Nonto again, and Aronson clearly needs to find his flow a bit. But yeah, I mean, I've got no fear. If Leeds play to their potential, then they'll win on Saturday.
Yeah, and obviously it's Sheffield United against Sunderland.
So somebody drop
Friday. That's the Friday night game. So someone's dropping points there.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, just mentioning them, they obviously play Hull, who are managerless,
right,
as it stands. The no manager bounce might help.
Who have Coventry got?
That's also the point, yeah, of course. See
They've
how,
got a certain new manager, haven't they?
see how old Frank gets on. It's a shame we're not going to see him at Elland Road this year, isn't it? I can't remember who they've got. I will look it up in a minute. But yeah, what do we make of Lampard's return? Because it seems like a horrendous downgrade, does Robbins to Lampard.
Cardiff at home. They've got 3 o'clock on Saturday.
Winnable. Cardiff lost to QPR at home, I think, last night.
Yeah.
It's dreadful for them. Yeah, the Lampard thing is just, it's bizarre, isn't it? I think they had that one season with Derby where Mel Morris chucked a load of money at it. They got the likes of Mason Mount and Harry Wilson in, and as we know, to our own detriment, had a pretty good season. But in one season there, he jumped straight up to Chelsea. Again, makes a fist of it with a lot of their better younger players. Eventually it falls apart. Goes back a second time when Chelsea were broken, didn't fix it. I think, again, it's just, unfortunately for him, it's another appointment that's just off the back of his very good playing career. And I think Coventry will live to regret it. I mean, the Robbins decision still absolutely baffles me. I think I'd have taken a relegation with him if I was a Coventry fan, given the credit he had in the bank.
Yeah, and, well, with reference to Hull, who we mentioned in passing there, how mad does that decision to get rid of Raphinha look now? How he had them playing. I know it wasn't the most attractive all the time, but he had them on the verge of the playoffs, and they've gone down the German hipster route, which is how I described it, I think, this week on one of the shows. And I was being slightly glib and tongue-in-cheek, but actually it's proven to be quite true, and it goes to show that maybe people who own football clubs are not all that sane all the time.
Become quite poisonous there as well, with him having a go at the fans and the fans having a go at him, and it's a shame to see.
I wonder if they might go back in for Raphinha, and whether he'll even answer their call, because I think clearly he wanted to stay, and as you say, had a really good season there. But I mean, I don't know which direction they're going to go in. Like you say, they've gone for the exotic German route. Do they try to go back to basics now and I mean, try and keep themselves up? I mean, it's got 2/3 of the season to go, I suppose. But yeah, dreadful appointment.
Yeah. So Sheffield United Sunderland on Friday. I wasn't aware it was that. So that will be an interesting watch. Middlesbrough Hull, Oxford Millwall, Watford QPR. Blackburn Leeds, the slightly bizarre police inflicted 1:30 kickoff because of that large travelling support. I mean, famously, you can't get up to any mischief before 1:30, so I'm sure it'll all be good. Bristol City against Plymouth, Coventry Cardiff, Norwich against Luton, Preston against West Brom. That's got another 0-0 written all over it, hasn't it?
They draw every week, don't they? It's bizarre. Every single week getting a draw.
And Hecky being there, I'd looked at that Preston away fixture. You know, as you run through the season, you think where we're going to pick up points, what might be difficult, and I think recency bias meant I thought, oh god, that'll be a tough one away. But they seem to be a different animal this year under Heckingbottom. Stoke Burnley. Stoke not pulling up any trees, but Burnley not really trying to attack.
Burnley can't score for toffee, but I mean, they don't concede. I think they've only conceded 6 all season, which is half of what Leeds have conceded. So if they're going to compete, it's going to be on the back of clean sheets. But interesting to see how that's going to shake out. I mean, you've obviously got Leeds at the top at the moment, Sheffield United sticking in there with the 2-point deduction, Burnley clinging in. I wonder if Sunderland are going to eventually fall away, but it feels like the top 4 maybe are just having a bit of a gap. It could be down to sort of Burnley or Sheffield United if they can stick with Leeds.
Swansea Portsmouth is the final game of Saturday. Portsmouth. I didn't know on the match ball why Portsmouth had been postponed, but it was the lights, wasn't it? Again, they've had lighting trouble there a few times.
How was it lights? I assumed it was rain, just because of the way it's been the past week or two.
Millwall got all the way there. You'd be pleased to know. Went all the way to Portsmouth and got turned around.
Yeah, and then we look ahead to Sunday's game, which is Derby against Sheffield Wednesday. And actually on the same screen, I was looking at the fixtures at now, spinning ahead to the weekend after. Burnley Middlesbrough is the Friday game, so that'll be an interesting one. Very, very interesting. So that's just ahead of us playing Derby. So yeah, it's settling down nicely, I think. In terms of Saturday, we were talking about Firpo probably going straight back in. I had a similar conversation with my dad, actually. It's funny you should mention that. We were talking about how good Byram has been in recent weeks. And he had exactly the same conversation that we've effectively had, that you'd almost say Byram's played so well, you'd be tempted to leave him in, but you think maybe he's just going to nurse him through it because he's a fragile thing. Yeah,
I think if he'd been fine last night, like I say, I mean, I don't know if it was a slip of the tongue by Farker, but when we asked him about Byram and why he came off, he said he'd mentioned the hamstring discomfort and hopefully they got him off before he did any serious damage. But he did say, I hope he's going to be ready to carry on Saturday. So I don't know if he's just forgotten that Firpo is going to be back or whether he genuinely wants him to start again. So that's the only reason it planted that seed in my head. But I don't know. I think it would be the third game in 6 days. He's come off last night with a bit of a niggle. Firpo's back. He's been training. I mean, that's the thing. Firpo's not been injured. He's been training hard. So he's not going to be rusty coming in. So I do wonder if it's just going to be enough for Firpo to come in and just avoid any injuries for Byram.
He's fairly crucial to the way that we play, isn't he, Junior Firpo?
Well, the few games when he's not been here would suggest not, because we're fine without him.
No, but in terms of his ability to get down the wing, that's not to Byram's detriment by any stretch of the imagination, because there was a point, as I mentioned on the match ball, he ended up at centre forward last night when Pirot dropped deep to pick up the ball. I was like, oh, this is an interesting free-form experiment. I almost wanted to see him pick it up and stick it in the net. But
no, I do agree in general. I mean, I feel very comfortable having Firpo in the team and knowing Byram's there for when a fullback gets a book in, you want to waste a bit of time. He's just such a lovely, reliable option. I feel like Sam Byram never lets you down, which is setting him up for a red card or something on the weekend. Completely loses the plot, goes full max Gradle against Bristol Rovers.
Dan James was the third scorer. I mentioned the other two. Dan James scoring again. Just brilliant. And he needs a song. Why hasn't he got a song?
Don't blame me.
I was thinking again, you go to bed thinking about Leeds, wake up thinking about Leeds. What about that? He's got no song. Daniel James, he's got no song. Which is it's got levels to it because it's a song about not having a song. Any good? It's dead easy. Football chants have got to be easy.
I want something catchier.
Right.
Go back and go away and
keep working on it.
Yeah.
I noticed Byram got a song last night. There's only one Sam Byram.
Yeah.
I think he'd said to Farker, he'd made a joke of the fact that Tanaka's come in, had 3 chants in about a week. And Byram's obviously been here since he was a kid and didn't have one. So I think he was quite pleased to get a song last night. But yeah, Dan James, he's not a particularly exotic name, isn't it? It doesn't really sort of...
It's only got 2 syllables.
Yeah, it's tough.
You need 3, ideally, for a song.
Go on, Daniel.
Daniel James, yeah, that's what... Daniel James, he's got no song, Daniel James.
Playing well though, isn't he? He's
great.
His confidence off the charts at the moment.
Yeah, he's just proving really valuable and seems more composed. Again, seems to be maturing with the team. It's like his decision making does seem infinitely better. It's one of the things we picked up on when we were talking about it with the finish. In years past, I kind of expected him to spoon that off into the crowd, but to just lift it over like that was really, really nice.
Super finish, really, really good finish. And I think it was just rotation last night. He'll come back in on Saturday and no doubt do really well again. But he's 27 now. I mean, you forget he turned 27 this month. And like I say, you spoke to him last night and he says he's sneakily become one of the senior members of the team. And that's true. And he's been here quite a few years now. If you think back to Leeds picked him up in 2021. It was the summer before Bielsa's second Premier League year. So he's been here a little while now. Obviously had the loan spell in Fulham, but yeah, just going from strength to strength, isn't he? And obviously the acid test will be if they get up, whether he can carry that into the Prem and sort of improve with the division.
So he's coming into his peak years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Although someone with that sort of speed, though, you always think, a bad injury. Could do him in.
I think what you've started to show on this show and all the shows is that you're applying this to yourself. Stuff. You're applying this to yourself, catastrophizing, worrying about things. I'm thinking, what would I do under the circumstances? When was it you lost your pace? About 18?
Never had it. First in the head.
First 20 yards in your head. Just dropping deep and playing everybody on side.
That's it, yeah. Like in the Swansea team. It'd be interesting to see what else do you think we'll do on the wings then? Because we've seen James and Nonto rotated. Do you think it's Solomon's time to sit one out?
I think so. I think given the way Farker spoke about it last night and the fact that Nonto had his rest on Sunday, James had it last night, Solomon was left on for the full game last night. Again, didn't score or assist, so it's a bit easier to then take him out of the firing line. Played quite a bit for Israel over the break as well, so I think it'll be back to Nonto and James, and maybe Ramazani gets a bit more time as well on Saturday. But I mean, what a 2 to bring on, Solomon and Ramazani, if it isn't going well.
He cited tactical reasons, did Farker, for making the change out wide, thinking that Dan James wouldn't necessarily have the space to run into because they were sat deep, as you referenced a little bit earlier on. I wonder if he sees that being different at Blackburn to extend this, the point further. How does he see Blackburn setting up at home on Saturday? Do we know much about that? Will we face the low block again? I don't know. Quite
possibly. I mean, Eustace, when he's brought teams to Elland Road, has been pretty much as you'd expect, with spoiling the game, wasting time where they can. So with them being at home, Tails will be up after winning last night. Maybe there will be a bit more space. But even last night, I mean, you look at the goal that James scored, there was space to run into. Bogle put the ball over the top and he found that space. So I wonder if it's less about Blackburn's tactics and more about the fact that it is just sharing the minutes around and making sure that nobody feels left out and nobody feels too sort of badly treated.
It's an incredible luxury, though, isn't it, to be able to pick based on individual attributes of 4 excellent wingers, most teams in this league will have two first choice wingers who will play if they're fit.
One of whom is really talented normally,
Yeah.
and the other will be functional. It's generally like that.
He was like quick but can't cross or something like that. This is sort of limited or can kind of do a little trick but has no pace. That sort of they're your basic championship wingers, aren't they?
Yeah.
So to be able to go, well, their fullback's a little bit slow. They play a bit higher up the pitch, and be able to pick a team around it is amazing, really.
Yeah, I think, have we said that it's nice to be finally in this position, in this division? And obviously, we'd rather be in the Premier League than the Championship. It would have been better to not get relegated. But, here we are. We deal with it. That's our reality. But it's nice to have all the dice loaded in our favour. Just for once, because we've never had it. We struggled for so many years to try and get out of this division, or maybe not try that hard under some owners. But, it always felt like a monumental struggle. And now you see the advantage of the parachute payments. And obviously, we sold a lot of talent in the summer, which has, financially kept things ticking over. But it's allowed us to reinvest in the likes of Ramazani and to recycle that money. So yeah, it's a luxury that most teams don't have. And I think, again, talking about the weirdness prior to Swansea, and people not quite being able to understand why the atmosphere's flattened at Elland Road, and I said jeopardy's the word I kept using at the time, a feeling of a lack of jeopardy. We're not used to it. We're not used to being the best team in the division and teams just not knowing how to deal with it. And I don't think we're used to having the embarrassment of riches that we've got. Because as you've said loads of times, Michael, imagine being a winger and you've been dealing with like Solomon and Nonto, and then Dan James comes and goes, I'm tired now. I'm tired, and I've got to deal with him for 20 minutes. And the game starts to open up. It's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot to deal with. It is. We just need to, this is our last season of it, though, isn't it? That's the thing.
Hopefully.
And I mean, in terms of, well, one way or another, it is.
Yeah.
In terms of keeping this team together, we either get up or we completely reshape it next year. So let's just get up, eh?
Yeah.
They've finally got a team befitting of the size of the club, haven't they? Leeds have always been the biggest club in the Championship over many, many years, going back to the start of the century when they first got relegated. So they finally have now got that bank of players that can keep them where they belong at the top of the league and on the verge of promotion.
Did you notice last night that the Leeds are going up? Songs have finally started.
Yeah.
I think, there's that little feeling that it's heading in the right direction. Obviously, helped by the table and being top of it. But don't know about you, it feels to me, and as you say, it's just starting to stratify a little bit, Beren, that we're going to be there or thereabouts now, because that gap is opening up. We're 6 points clear now of 5th.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it feels. I noticed that with Watford, like you say, having a really good season by their standards, but yeah, in 5th and 6 points back, and it's only 2 wins, but I think just everything is trending towards Leeds just being there now. And I think unless they have some sort of injury catastrophe where you've got 7 or 8 players out, I just can't see how the stats nosedive badly enough for them to fall away from this point. I just think the stats are so good and so much better than everybody else that even when you chuck in the odd bad result, they're just going to be there now for the duration.
I think it's nice to see Sunderland. I know that they're on a big run of draws, aren't they? But there was a point a month ago where people were going, everyone kept saying this about Ipswich last year, kept saying the drop away and they never did. Sunderland now have done. And I think there's a level of reassurance there that people have gone, okay, maybe they're not actually that good. Maybe they're not this year's Ipswich. Because at this point last year, I still thought Ipswich would drop away.
Yeah, me too.
I have to say. But all credit to them.
I think Sheffield United are probably closer to Ipswich, not necessarily in terms of style, but in terms of results they're delivering.
Yeah.
Because they would be top with the 2 points still added on.
Sunday felt a bit like Ipswich to me, with Leeds getting that. Because obviously when Swansea scored that third, you think 3-3, right, that's done. And how many times last season did you see Ipswich then go and get that 4th goal and win it somehow? And you're thinking, how will they keep doing this? And I think that's just so important for Leeds to be that team, to be the team that everybody else is cursing, that everybody else hates. And they look at the results every day and say, how have Leeds won again?
I remember Farke's Norwich did that quite a bit as well in the first Bielsa season. I remember it was quite often the case that I'd leave a game thinking, Norwich have drawn, they've dropped points.
And Pookie scores.
By the time you got back to the car, there's the 97th minute when you're like, for fuck's sake. Yeah. How's this happened again?
But I suppose these are the moments, the games on which seasons turn, and having that strength and depth in the squad helps in that regard. If, somebody's bringing on a championship clogger off the bench versus us having, all these wingers, it's like, just put another 2 on, it's fine. Assuming they all stay fit. It's great. Long may it continue. And I think, just in conclusion, it's really nice now. I know was it 6 wins out of 8 now, something like that.
Top of my head,
yeah. Just being able to look forward to every game that comes. And I know there will be a game that we lose at some point soon, and it'll cause a little wobble. But I feel like there's enough resilience within this team and this squad now to not go on a catastrophic run of form like the end of last season. And I know I'm setting myself up for a bad fall.
I was going to say, I'm just imagining clipping this up at some point.
But there will be a difficult spell at some point where maybe we lose, and then the next game, Farker maybe just dials it back a bit and they go and get a draw, a little bit like they did at the start of the season against West Brom, and everyone will start losing the shit, thinking, we're about to chuck this away. But hopefully there's enough evidence now that suggests that this team can and will bounce back. And we've got so much strength in depth.
And a 0-0 against West Brom is like the standard result.
Yeah.
So
for them.
So we're fine to move on from that.
Yeah. And ultimately we're top of the league. So should we just stay there?
Be nice.
It would make next summer a lot easier than last summer.
Yeah. Let's just do that. No playoffs, please.
Not dicking around with those. Beren, thanks for coming in. We'll do it again soon then, yeah?
Cheers, fellas.
Speak in a bit.
The Square Ball Podcast.